Lucy, thanks so much for being here. Let's start. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to be involved in the nonprofit space.
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years. I have started now 4 companies myself in the for-profit space. So my first business was born out of my own frustration of seeing food waste every day when I worked in restaurants. And that turned into the first company of its kind in Canada that helped restaurants reduce waste and save money. It was called Terrace. And then I had a catering business that did quite well. I had a dog treat business that also was operating in the food waste industry. We took perfectly good food, usually discarded, and upcycled it into healthy natural dog treats. So that business was called Earth Pup. And then I got more into consulting after that. During that time, I also worked in the startup world, running and managing, facilitating accelerators and incubators across Canada as well as internationally. So supporting other incredible founders and change makers to get their ideas off the ground and grow it and scale it. And so that all together, bringing all that experience together, it sparked my love for impact entrepreneurship and driving positive change. One of the programs I also should note that I co-managed was at Spring Activator called the Impact Startup Visa Program, and that helped immigrants bring their business to Canada. And I co-managed that program for a couple of years, loved it, absolutely loved it. And I should also note, during that time, I did a bit of advocacy in correctional facilities in Canada. So
let me interrupt you there. So you've got an entrepreneurial background, you've got a history of starting your own companies, you started to give back through some of your activities in the nonprofit space, but here you are sitting here now on the precipice of launching something directly into that space. What does that feel like when you decide to step off the curb?
That, and I should say that has just kind of happened. It wasn't a huge plan. It was an idea that I had to create a program to support previously incarcerated individuals to launch their business idea and also simultaneously gain employment. And I have a partner in it. It's called the Comeback Catalyst program. And it started as, we should just launch this as a pilot. It's something we really want to do. We're really passionate about it. And then we realized, we should probably turn this into a nonprofit because we had so much interest from the community and everyone we talked to wanted to get involved, and there is a huge opportunity for it. So it's interesting because for me, with regards to how I'm feeling about it and your question, it's reminding me a lot of when I launched my first company, and because it just happened.
So I'm curious, did you when you said this feels like I'm starting my old for-profit company, did you quickly realize that there was a difference, or was it very similar? Was it like putting on a comfortable pair of shoes that, I've done this before, it's just a different tax treatment?
Yeah, it feels like that so far. I should say we're still starting the process of going through registration to become a nonprofit. And we are definitively going to be launching the program next year. So I'm sure there's some things that I don't know yet. This is a new world for me, but it's really exciting. But for where I am currently, where we have the team confirmed, we are hiring everyone, we are launching next spring, it feels very similar because the approach of how do we build the team, how are we going to generate income to cover all the costs and get this off the ground, everything else, I'm leaning on all my experiences doing this in the for-profit space, and it feels the same to me right now anyways.
I guess I hear a lot of people that come to the nonprofit space because they want to affect the social change, that they want to see something change, but maybe they don't have that business background. What are some of the things that you said, okay, I just took this from my for-profit experience? Like, what are some of those lessons that you learned that for you may seem obvious, but for others may seem very, very important for them to get right?
It's a great question. I would say right now, for the stage that we're at currently, because I've had a number of meetings this week where, my team members are saying, what about this thing and this thing? And I've already covered it. I'm like, yep, no problem. It's already done. And for that, it's just having all of our ducks in a row from a legal, financial, and accounting perspective. So all of our legal paperwork, like for example, I think, and this is the case in the for-profit space as well, I think with early stage founders, they feel like they don't need to have all everything done from a legal standpoint perfectly with paperwork. They want to find a document on Google and that's sufficient. I'm not doing that. So I think that would be one consideration, is that we are very much investing in getting the right legal support from day one, so that all the potential things that I think could go wrong now, it's already being accounted for from a legal standpoint. And then financially as well. So meeting with our accountants and making sure all of our optics are above board, so that when we have income coming in, our books are solid. But then I think to really lean on what has been the biggest thing is just from a funding perspective, that it's been very valuable to have all the experience I've had in fundraising previously in the for-profit space, because it felt like a copy and paste of how we need to approach getting funding and what funders are looking for and how to structure like a grant application, for example.
Can you expand on that? Because I think a lot of people would say going for a grant application is nothing like working in a for-profit sector. How do you see the parallels? What are the parallels that you identify?
From what I'm seeing thus far, even in grants in the nonprofit space, they want to have an understanding of what the ROI is. Like, there's a reason that funding exists, and the ROI doesn't always need to be financial. So what is the intention of that funding from the perspective of the funder? Is it a foundation? Is it government? Like, what does that grant exist for? Because whether it's for profit or not, because I've certainly found this to be the case thus far in going after nonprofit funding, the application for that grant or for that investment needs to align with the intention of the funding, and there needs to be very clear ROI or impact metrics associated with the outcomes of the project. So, and this is, the definition of impact, it means that you are definitively solving the problem you set out to solve. So how are you measuring it? That should be the case for profit or non-for-profit, right? So when we're going after funding, it needs to be very clear, regardless of how you've structured the financing, if it's profit driven or not. It needs to be so clear that definitively this is a problem you're solving from a statistic, data-driven perspective, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs and founders, they feel deeply emotional and passionate about the problem, and that's really important. But what's the data? So I think that's number one, having clarity on the data of the problem you're solving, and that needs to align next on the solution. How is the solution going to result in data-driven outcomes specifically tied to that problem, so you know what you are tracking? Because having clarity on those numbers, that's going to put you above and beyond most other applicants. It just shows that you're on top of the numbers and you know what data you're tracking from day one. So you know that your business, your venture, your project is going to solve the problem. And then all that is telling funders is, oh, I can trust these folks with my money.
But how important is that data when it comes time to making a funding request?
The data, I would say, is equally important, but what's happened to us is that we have a number of impact metrics that our funders want to see. And I would say that that's a small percentage compared to all the data that we are gathering in the back end that will be supportive to us understanding how we can best support our community and help them to get results.
So I'm curious, you mentioned that part of your process was to take some of these ideas that you had and that you had formulated and to bring them to others. Yeah. Who are the others? Where did you find the others that had the experience to be able to share with you?
I leaned heavily on my network because I worked in the startup ecosystem for 10 years. So I leaned very heavily on my network. And I think I recommend this to a lot of other entrepreneurs as well. If you're meeting with someone, asking them afterwards, especially if they believe in your project, asking them, who else should I be talking to? Not do you know anyone else I should talk to? Who? And just meet with people. And so I shared my idea. I said, hey, I'm going to work on this project. And specifically, a connection that I'll be able to share more details about the outcomes of this connection in the future, but a connection that helped immensely to us being able to get this idea off the ground is I told my old boss. We were having a conversation. I said, oh yeah, and I'm working on this thing. Because I think it's really important to share what you're working on because you never know where those conversations are going to go. And I think that there's this assumption that someone's going to steal my idea and run with it. If we're all here to solve a problem that's going to make the world a better place, unless you're going to tell everyone about your patented technology, that maybe that's a top secret, it's pretty unlikely that someone's going to go, you know what, I'm going to stop my full-time job and I'm going to do this instead.
Even if somebody were to stop the full-time job and they solved the problem that you're trying to solve, then fantastic.
Like, yeah. And so I shared it with my old boss, and he said, "This is who I know you need to talk to." And that brief introduction made the biggest world of difference. And I think leaning on your network, starting there, but also another tidbit that I will share is reaching out to people that you find aspirational or that you know would be really key partners, asking for meetings.
Okay, so maybe this is a sensitive question. You've done this because you have a history in startups and you've run accelerators, or you've probably trained people to do this. But there's a lot of people that say, I don't have the network. I'm not comfortable reaching out to an influencer on LinkedIn or somebody that I think can help me. How do you help people like that overcome maybe that initial fear or reluctance to step out? Which
is very fair. I would first encourage them to reflect on where that fear is coming from. Is it a fear of rejection? Is it a fear of being judged? Or what is that rooted in? Taking some time there. And I don't think the answer is to force yourself even when you're deeply uncomfortable, because there's a lot of aspects of getting a business off the ground that's really uncomfortable. But I think when you can embrace it, and if you're go back to the why. What is the North Star? Why are you doing this? If you're wildly motivated to solve the problem that you were setting out to solve, then let that be your motivation to do the uncomfortable thing. And ask for help. If you're like, oh, I don't know how to do a cold outreach email. Oh my gosh, do you know someone in your network that's great at sales? Ask them to help you draft an outreach email. Hi, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would be more than happy to help you with that, because that would just be a couple sentences and it's an uncomfortable thing. But as you do it more, you get more comfortable and you'll get more momentum and you'll move faster. And that in itself will be motivating.
So when you take these ideas that you've honed and perfected through the for-profit world and bring it into the nonprofit world, what are some of the other advantages that you've seen for where you are that have come because of the work that you've done before?
That's a good question. I think pitching the idea and selling it is a big component as well, because I like, to be very clear, the me 10 years ago starting my first business was very much in this headspace of, ooh, are people gonna like this? And it's, I don't feel like that now, because I feel very comfortable pitching an idea to any audience and being comfortable with, okay, I'm gonna tweak this pitch slightly depending on who I'm talking to and how they might be excited about getting involved, and just being confident in it.
Where does that confidence come from?
Doing it a bunch of times. I think doing it a bunch of times, but I think also having clarity in how I'm going to pitch it. Because I think when you're first starting out in an idea, there's this assumption that I care about it, so everyone else will. And that's not necessarily the case, and that's okay. But how do we pitch the idea in a way that's very clear to the audience and in a way that they are going to get excited about? Because there's a very real difference between me saying, oh yeah, no, I have this project that's gonna help people who've been previously incarcerated. That's one way. Or I could say, I'm working on this project to help individuals recently incarcerated and they're going to gain employment and launch their own business. And that's clarity and confidence in pitching.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is that if you want to advance the mission, you need to be equally adept at planning and as you do at selling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those are skills that can be developed, whether you're going through a program, you have a mentor, you're YouTubing it. How can I confidently pitch my idea? I mean, and there's so many different strategies that I recommend to other entrepreneurs to do. Like one that I'll say now that's super simple, do your elevator pitch that's 2 or 3 sentences to a friend and have them repeat back to you what they hear. That's very, very simple and very effective. It's like broken telephone for pitching.
What's the risk to somebody who's trying to promote social change of not getting that pitch correct?
I think you run the risk of not getting them on board with your mission. Because if we approach a conversation in the headspace of, oh yeah, they're obviously going to be really into what I'm working on, and we don't take the time to clearly articulate the elevator pitch of what, when, how you're doing what you're doing, why being the big component, then it's just assuming everyone is going to be on board no matter what, which is not always the case. People are like, and there's a multitude of reasons for that, but taking the time to have a clearly articulated, just elevator pitch alone, that then puts you in a position where you can be very clear and confident in how you are communicating what you're working on and why, and increase the likelihood that you're going to get others aligned with you.
So what I'm hearing is that this is a very important thing. You're getting this communication part right. Where does it rank, in terms of the sequencing of things as you're building this out now? Does it come before you get into the governance structure? Does it come after, or is it all kind of some important stuff that needs to be done simultaneously?
That's a good question. I think for how it worked out for us is it came before the governance structure, because I already had an understanding of what we were going to do. One, I already knew, okay, when this milestone happens, immediately I'm calling my lawyers. So we already had the milestones mapped out of what needed to happen before we had team hired and before we actually launched. But the clarity of how we were approaching it, the impact metrics, and how we're calculating ROI, all those key pieces, that is what I've spent the most time doing. That and relationship building over the past 4 months, for sure.
When it comes to kind of looking out into kind of the next year when you're planning to launch things, are you considering the work that you've done and the planning you've done, is this proof of concept? Is this kind of minimum viable product, or is this we're off to the races because we know we're going to make the change that we need to make?
This is going to be our pilot, for sure. And we're definitely off to the races. We're ready to launch, and we have an amazing team behind us. So we've done absolutely all of the due diligence we can possibly do. We have a team of about 7 who are going to bring this off the ground, who include individuals with lived experience and a number of individuals who have executed incredible, impactful, large-scale programs of a similar structure. So I'm sure there's a lot of things we're going to learn, and I'm sure there's a lot of challenges we're going to have, but we are very much ready to make our first pilot happen and first year of programming happen.
I guess when I think about the space that you're in, surely there's other groups that are doing entrepreneurship training. Surely there's other groups that are working with previously incarcerated people. What did you see in your research that identified that there was a gap? Because obviously you're filling a gap in the marketplace. Your business experience suggests that. But what research did you do to validate that, in fact, that there was a gap and this needed to be done?
I think one component of that, and there are other players in the space, absolutely. I don't think there's enough, though, given the need. But one component of it is, our programs just education alone? Is it just sitting in a workshop? Here's 90 minutes about sales. That's it. And I think that there's an opportunity to really meet participants where they're at. They don't need an hour and a half lecture about sales at all. They need an understanding of, okay, what do I need to get this off the ground? They don't need us to do a long lecture about using HubSpot and a CRM tool. They need just, okay, here's how you track your contacts and here's how you start. So I think there's a component of meeting them where they're at, not approaching it with high-level academic lectures, and approaching it in a way where they can really feel empowered and confident in their ability to do it. And that's simply for us, that's looking at how we're structuring it, bringing in guest speakers who have lived experience. And then also just not approaching it as they're bums in seats, we've educated them, and that's the end. Not at all. That's the beginning. So for us, when we look at how we build out all of our programming, we're looking at, okay, where are they going to be at 12 weeks when they finish our program? And how are we going to ensure that they're very successful? And that's for us, it's building up partnerships, ensuring that we have people on our team to provide extra support and mentorship. They are all going to be mentored by founders who are successful with lived experience. And then once they graduate, they will go into another stream of the program where they will be supported ongoing on a monthly basis for a minimum of 12 months. And then also one thing that I'll add that I haven't seen in other programs is we have an employment track, because I anticipate, and it's been confirmed by those that we're consulting with and our advisors who have significant experience mentoring individuals who are either in the prison system or they've been recently incarcerated, they have a record, and they've reintegrated into society or are, they're going to need employment. They're going to have, I have a business idea, but I need full-time income. And so we have an employment track for that. So they will have support in building their resume, letters of support, career coaching, and connections with employers, so that while they are learning about how to ideate their business or side hustle or project, they'll also get employment as well. And I haven't seen that before.
I want to dig in a little bit more on that, because you said your metrics are not just about hey, we gave a presentation, congratulations, you get a sticker and you go home. So you're building the metrics that are tracking the success of people as they come through the program. But that employment piece seems to me to be a little bit harder to track, because if you're doing entrepreneurship training, maybe people are comfortable having full-time employment. I don't know how to square that.
So for the employment piece, the metric there would be how many, so if we look at approximately, let's say like a third of participants end up needing employment, then the metric is how many gained employment, who went into the employment track, who articulated upon application, I need employment. So that would be the metric there. So that's jobs placed.
So let me ask you this question. Is entrepreneurship more important for the previously incarcerated because they have barriers to employment?
I think that's a component of that. I would be more curious, based on our research, that is a component of it, and having autonomy. And then from everything else that we've learned, a lot of them are also very natural entrepreneurs. Like we were having this conversation with one of our advisors who he's mentored over 1,000 incarcerated individuals to date, and they are all asking about how to launch their business idea.
Does the training that you will be providing work also on inspiring people to become entrepreneurs, or is it just about fanning the flames of an idea that already exists?
I think it'll be fanning the flames of an idea that already exists, because it's, in order for them to apply, they need to be able to clearly articulate their business idea. Otherwise, we're launching an ideation program. And so I could certainly see maybe we would do something like that down the line. But in order to be eligible to apply, you need to be able to have a solid business idea that you can articulate, and we will support you in bringing it to life.
So I want to bring this right back to the beginning. How important is the ability to pitch your idea as an entrepreneur going to be, and how can you take the experience that you've had in your personal and professional life, and as you've created this thing, to kind of tie these things together? It's not just about the idea, it's about the ability to present and sell that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, do you mean for our applicants? Or
yeah, for the applicants.
For the applicants? So it's pretty important, but I don't expect it to be perfect, because that's what we would support them in. But I have a lot of experience in going through applications and also interviewing applicants, so we will have interviews as well. And what we're really looking for is just, okay, do they know what they want to launch? And is it clear that they're driven to make it happen? Because we can support them with everything else and fine-tuning it and helping them to have a really perfect pitch. It's important, but it's not the be-all, end-all, because what we're really looking for is just, we want to be able to believe in the person, which we do, and really support them in bringing their idea to life.
So I think about somebody who wants to create change in their community is the message that be more prepared, be better prepared, keep preparing yourself, because you never know when the opportunity that you're going to bump into the person who's going to change the trajectory of your organization.
I think keep learning. I think that's it. And then I think that goes for all of us, because whether it's an applicant, like I know, for example, my business partner, so Emily O'Brien, the founder of Comeback Snacks, like she started her business behind bars, and she was so hungry to learn, how do I get this off the ground? She read so many books. She just read and read and read and went, okay, how do I teach myself how to do this? And I think that that's the case for any of us. Like I'm learning how to build a nonprofit. That's so new to me. I don't pretend to know exactly how to do that, but I'm eager to learn. And I think my main point here is, like, if we're constantly learning and looking at, okay, where are my gaps in knowledge? How can I do better? Where can I get feedback? Like that's what I do with my team as well. Like what have I missed? We're going to be learning and doing the best job possible, as opposed to assuming like, oh, everyone's going to be on board with me no matter what. I don't need to learn any new skills at all. So, it's kind of an exaggerated way of putting it, but yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.